Clair Obscur, Expedition 33. So this is a game from new development studio Sandfall Interactive. It's an RPG which draws heavily from, well, look at it. It's a bit of everything. It's The Legend of Dragoon, Persona, Lost Odyssey, and of course a whole lot of Final Fantasy. But though it draws heavily, they've created a truly unique and special game with a new world and new characters, which you actually may find totally fascinating. Short story short, not to be coy, it has a few teeny tiny kooky imperfections, but overall, Expedition 33 is a straight up banger of a game. This smaller group took a swing for the fences and went all out. It's an amazing adventure with heart and challenge and a true distinctive identity. It's something I'm going to look back on fondly for a long time after playing. Look, if you're tired of AA games, sequels with decreasing returns or infinite remakes, this game is your solution right here. I highly suggest it. Now before we continue going, just so you know, I've been testing out a review copy, and this video was recorded playing on PC and is spoiler-free. Aggressively spoiler-free, in fact. There are a lot of great twists and turns in this tale, so I'm going to attempt and preserve that for you. So with story in mind, just such as the whole thing, all I can say is that personally for me, it's one of the highlights of the game. It's got interesting characters in a unique context here. It's this shattered world where the oldest are dying off in an orderly fashion one age year at a time, year by year and year by year. Expeditions, usually made up of the oldest, set out in their last year to learn more of the world and hopefully overcome the force that is killing everybody. This wicked paintress. Now, immediately from the beginning, it's going to grab you with this premise, this entire concept, and all the fascinating questions it poses. What's life like in a world where all the old are dead? Do you have children? Do you venture out on this apparently futile adventure? The introduction section of the game heaps all this on you, but to a good effect really, by virtue of forceful, tight cinematic presentation, accompanied by good performances from top to bottom. Andy Serkis, Jennifer English, you may know as Shadowheart of Baldur's Gate 3, Charlie Cox, our goddamn Matt Murdock, and Ben Starr, of course. This good, epic story focus is great, but it knows it's a video game too. So you hasten to set sail and explore across all sorts of weird, bizarre locations. Like Cave of Crystalline stuff, Sunken City down in the ocean, areas with strange creature dudes, magical, mysterious forests, a town with all these small paintbrush minion dudes. The writing in the game does a great job of being all serious when it's appropriate, and they added humour in certain light-hearted sort of banter-style methods that doesn't even feel forced or obnoxiously quippy or flippant or anything like that. They've just achieved a really good balance, and the emotional scenes hit really strong, man. But okay, enough being sappy about the story here. The actual game is a turn-based combat RPG adventure. You wander kind of linear levels divided by a large overworld map that you play through. You approach enemies and in classic sort of JRPG style, a turn-based fight breaks out. Now, I know, I saw the comments. Some folks just don't like turn-based these sorts of games, but while it's classic turn-based here, it also has a layer of being that much more active. So when an enemy does their turn, you can dodge to try and reduce some of the damage, or time something just right to be able to parry, and then you receive bonus damage on an enemy. It's generally a huge risk, because you can get hit real hard if you mess up, but if you succeed, it generally results in a very heavy counterattack. The thing is though, on regular difficulty, these dodging and parry timings are fairly tight, bordering on brutal, particularly against the bosses. So yeah, it's one of those games with, some of the baddest bosses you've seen in a while, but you're not going to have time to truly enjoy them because you're just having your arse beat, just getting pounded into the ground. Look, my reflexes are beginning to slow down, I think. I had my arse beat and I found this game much harder and more demanding than I had anticipated. Look, if you platinumed or breezed through something like Sekiro, you'll most likely be okay here and just think that I'm a baby, but just know that there are multiple difficulty options. Now the rest of the combat is amazing. Each member of your party has their own type of sub-mechanic that provides you with layers of methods to mess around and position enemies for huge damage. One character sort of grades a meter over time where you then can unleash a special electric attack. One character employs it as a type of system of cards where you can stack and withdraw certain kinds of elements against an opponent, and then collect the damage when you actually do need to, depending on what they are vulnerable to. One character leaves elemental marks on the opponents, and a great deal more actually. The game does a very good job of appearing quite simple, quite straightforward and gradually unfolding. Like just when you're beginning to learn the ropes of your party or gameplay mechanic, they add a new gameplay element. Really quite significant pretty far into the game, I was getting to try out new ways of interacting with combat, and I just liked that for pacing reasons. It can actually end up feeling all a bit complicated after some time. Hard to wrap your head around all the characters' own sub-rules, but again, it's worth seeing how to do, particularly if, like, you're a turn-based or JRPG pervert where you just enjoy stacking and setting up huge attacks and you're planning 4 steps ahead. You can actually tee up some nice stuff here. It appears like a good mechanic for that. Now this combined with a basic loot system of weapons with varying elements applied, along with upgrading those weapons with stick-on materials to adhere to your favourites, just sort of caps it off. You're also acquiring these specific items to place on your characters that grant you bonuses, such as initiating a fight with an additional attack point or dodges yielding you some healing and so on. These come with their own levels, and there are plenty to be found by defeating enemies and exploring and things. You also have a free aim attack, which is neat to sort of shoot at an enemy's weak points or, possibly blow their weapon out of their hands to, eliminate one's attack that perhaps you had a difficult time with. I actually wish this system was used more often. It's quite good, but I'd like to see them, such as flesh it out in a sequel or something. So when your character gains experience and levels, you can place points into normal skill things, such as, health, greater attack power, greater defense, luck. You also gain skill tree points to release more abilities, which you can then take 6 into combat at once, such as like an ice spell, an area of effect attack, or perhaps debuffing mobs, a heal. There's a lot, and the game makes you mix them up pretty well enough. One of mine is one of the character battles with stances, and it's all about more or less building the back and forth, and which move will then trigger which stance. If you do this move, but if this enemy has some debuff put on it, that means that then that character will change to say another stance with more attack power or more defense power, depending on what's going on. It really can take a lot of thinking, but in a way that I enjoyed. As someone who doesn't do a lot of good thinking in video games, I think they get it right here. All these systems, all these items, all these stats, my only complaint is that the on-screen UI is a bit cluttered for it all. Like going through it is a bit awkward, and glancing over, things aren't really ideal. After a while, you just get rows and rows of equipable bonuses that just sort of resemble a dull list. I would have actually wished less is more instead, quality over quantity. But I guess on the other hand, there is plenty to arm here for customization or player expression, I guess. Still overall, however, it is a good system and it all promotes exploration. There is much side content here, holy shit, like I found myself attempting to balance my playthrough with exploration, enough to acquire better items, but there's really a lot of sub-areas to explore and secret left turns that can take you to an optional sub-boss. It's got a pretty good amount of that kind of thing, and most of it doesn't feel like filler or half-baked stuff at all. The only thing I actually hated here is actually the platforming. Sure, the character does run, jump, and climb on occasion. It's largely optional, but it's so finicky and just isn't good at all. The game occasionally wants you to jump onto ledges with these incredibly weak jumps and no actual solid grab system. Walking very, very slow on very thin ledges, your character just slips around. It's uncomfortable. It feels like it's shoved into the game. It doesn't quite click, and I found it very frustrating at times. And there's not really a map. There's an overworld map, which unfortunately just has icons and not many names on all of these places that kind of makes remembering things a little annoying. But when you're in the separate areas, even though they're relatively linear with only some of the branching paths, you don't really have any kind of map of any type that I could find, which makes things a bit difficult in terms of backtracking or searching for things. Sometimes I would turn left or take a loop, and I would lose my way once or twice. The only other thing I criticize now is that you spend so much time out in the wild world going on adventures with odd creatures and viewing magical things that I actually wanted to spend more time spent in the home region where the characters were from originally. That region, that configuration is just that good, so I guess that's sort of just a backhanded compliment. Technically, I did have some stuttering throughout and Unreal Engine stuff and, some graphical hitching in cutscenes like strange, shimmering hair effects, but I've had nothing actually super distracting or game-breaking. I didn't have any crashes either, and there's a lot of game here. It can be completed in 30 to 40 hours depending on your playstyle. The game actually does a good job of pacing it flat out and not overstaying its welcome. It doesn't linger on for too long, and you can squeeze more mileage out of it, a little bit. With all the side material, and there's a new game plus too, so it really just feels like they did tick a lot of the right boxes here. Oh, and I forgot to say anything about the music. It's some of the best I've heard in a game in a very long time, like the main theme and motifs and some of the battle themes, especially the French-themed ones. I just find myself humming them to me in the daytime, so I suppose that is a measure of success. Look, apart from a couple of small nitpicks here and there, I know I've completely kissed this game's ass, but, like, it's new IP, it's heavily inspired but still feels fresh. It's not overly padded or overstretched. It doesn't feel rushed, undercooked, or half-assed. It's a single-player adventure with no microtransactions, and it's $50. As a video game player, as a video game enjoyer, as a video game buyer, this is just the kind of game I'm on the hunt for. So it just came at the right time for me. Maybe it'll come for you too, but this is a before you buy. You know how this works by now. I give you some pros and cons, and a little bit of personal opinion, and now I want to hear yours down in the comments. If you are looking forward to this game, I'd love to know whether you jumped in straight away, whether it's living up to your expectations. Perhaps you didn't know about it, or perhaps you heard me rambling about it months ago in videos and I said it seemed good and you didn't want to listen to me. Whoever you are, let's talk down in the comments.